Attention business owners and managers. Are you determined to make 2019 your best year yet? Are you tired of not showing up online where people are searching? Are you overwhelmed by digital marketing? If you answered yes to these, stop. Write this down, and after the podcast, get help. Go to successfulmarketinggroup.com/Cheryl Reeve. Glory Ramsey and Successful Marketing Group will help you get found, get customers, and build your dreams. Her results are proof. After the podcast, go to successfulmarketinggroup.com/Cheryl Reeve and sign up for a free 45-minute phone call and action plan with Glory. Make 2019 a huge success.
I keep having people tell me, I saw Cheryl Reeve at the Gopher game. You're becoming a fixture over there.
Well, I'm a season ticket member, so that's not a new thing.
It shouldn't be a surprise.
It should not be a surprise. I've actually had the opportunity to be over there, once the beginning of the season. We kind of cleared that. I had a lot of travel then, but lately I've had the opportunity to be in town more, and so I'm happy to be able to be in the stands. And I read that their attendance has increased by 2,700. And that's tremendous.
That's
These are things that go a long way in recruiting and just overall, kind of feel for the program. And obviously it helps the players, to have that sort of home court advantage. And so, it's definitely fun to be a part of it.
This is the Cheryl Reeve Show. That's Cheryl Reeve. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune. This is our Lynx, WNBA, social justice, strong women in sport type podcast from TalkNorth.com. We have a lot of great co-hosts on the network. Check out TalkNorth.com. Or Chuck Barta, the longtime Lynx trainer who I got to know when he was working for the Vikings way back in the early 90s, just asked me, how do you get a podcast? So we need to keep educating people how you find a podcast, how you find this podcast. Don't call it a podcast. Call it on-demand radio.
That's
it makes more sense to people.
That's right.
We need to get good people like Chuck listening to the show, as well as all of our current listeners. We do appreciate everybody who listens. If you'd like to advertise with the show, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. Please download before you listen, and please follow us at Talk on Twitter, where we put a lot of live show information, other things. Thanks to Gloria Ramsey of SuccessfulMarketingGroup.com and Shelley Boyan-Breen and the Shelley Bean, the Sports Queen Sports Books. We'll tell you more about both their businesses later. They've been great friends of the program as we've gone on. I really didn't mean to start too much on Lindsay Whalen. We could always talk about Lindsay. I don't want to do it every week. But it is interesting that, at the same time she has a team that's starting to really kind of struggle, especially with their shooting. Attendance is up. And I know one of our high school writers at the Star Tribune recently did a story saying that, hey, the high school coaches in Minnesota are incredibly appreciative and encouraged by the fact that Whalen and her staff are out there just scouring the countryside looking for Minnesota-born players.
Well, I thought that was important. I was happy to read that. I think I actually liked that article on Twitter because I think it exemplifies exactly what Lindsay wants to be known for as the head coach of University of Minnesota. Of course, we should be top of mind for every prospect, every level of prospect. And I think Lindsay made that a priority, probably priority number one. And so, there's too much talent in this state that has gone elsewhere. And sometimes it's going to happen for a variety of reasons. But some of the reasons why it was happening was unacceptable. And I think that Lindsay identified that. And, of course, being a Minnesotan herself, that this would be top of mind for her. So I was happy to see her getting that recognition.
And she's out there looking for players like herself. I mean, she was a very good high school basketball player, but she wasn't renowned.
Right. Yeah, I think that player goes a long way. I think there's, you have your high level players that the recruiting process is, it's a big time challenge and all that. But I think there's something to be said for, sort of the one that is not, top 10 in the country sort of thing, and you just see something in them, like a Lindsay Whalen that I think she identifies those things really well, and those players will do really well in playing for her.
So what is your primary focus as we sit here on a Friday afternoon, late January? Is it draft? Is it free agency? Is it your foreign players? What consumes most of your time?
Besides Oliver.
Besides Oliver,
yeah.
Of course.
No, I would say that, free agency is ahead of the draft, but draft is ongoing. Draft preparation started in November. With actually getting out and seeing players, and so that's been ongoing. So it's not that it's not on your minds; it's more that free agency is front and center as we entered into January, and the other qualifying offers, et cetera, and we learned who was cored, and so we've been hard at work as all other 11 teams have been in terms of how they're going to what they're going to do in free agency, and so we've been very active. On phone, talking to players, talking to agents. And so the next step is February 1st, is to learn, sort of how you did, what direction those things go. And what happens with that is, dominoes start to fall. Once you start to hear maybe one player verbally committed here, then that creates a different situation. And then next thing you know, maybe, you're on, you move to a different scenario. And so everybody does that. So you got to be really nimble. You got to be ready for those, decisions. And then also February 1 is the date you could actually sign players, but offer sheets for restricted free agents. That's the date there to look for, because there's a number of quality restricted free agents in this year's class. And, I don't know how much movement there will be. I think most of the teams that have restricted free agents are in a position to retain their players, via matching any offer sheets. And so as a result of that, you begin to maybe seek a trade, to see if you can get them that way. So there's a lot of conversation, around the league, and it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
As an evaluator, let's go more to the draft, but this also pertains to free agency too. We've seen shifts in other sports, maybe less on the ground, in-person scouting, maybe more analytics, more film work. What's your balance for you?
Not a fan of that idea, that's for sure. I love to be present and watch a player play. I love to learn about who they are as a person, by your own interaction, not by somebody else telling me. So seeing it with your own eyes. We certainly do a lot of vetting, like every team does, and I think the analytics are you can't escape it. That's very much a part of this. But I think that we have, we say it's a tool. And, there are times maybe if you have or a couple prospects that are similar, or, maybe a different position, but you kind of look at, the analytics side of it. Some people value different things, in the analytics. And I think for us, we have a tremendous statistician in Paul Swanson, who is just a wealth of information.
He's becoming kind of stealthily famous.
He
gets a lot of mentions.
And he deserves it. I mean, this guy, he's just so good, so helpful, and and he's a believer in his stats, and sometimes it's stats only, and so you have to. I'm a big believer in kind of getting a consensus and listening to other people, and then you put it all together. And then you make your decision based on all of the information, and certainly there's weighted information. I think seeing somebody in person probably carries the most weight. Skill sets, I think that's important. What do you need? What is your team looking for? Are there holes you're trying to fill, not just positionally but skill wise? So then that takes you in certain directions.
It's interesting because analytics among some fans and media member has a bad name, perhaps because the way it was presented is, the new, you've got to do this, or you're just in the dark ages and you have no chance to compete. You talk to Derek Falvey, who's known as an analytics guy, who grew up as an analytics guy, who invests heavily in that organization using analytics, and he really believes in developing these modern technologies that kind of free his scouts up to be able to go do more personal things, find out more personally about the player, what makes them tick, whether they have a work ethic, what their relationships are like, what they're like in the clubhouse. He very shrewdly, I think, is using modern technology to allow his people to work on the personal side.
I think I don't know, the use of analytics in baseball seems to be, pretty extensive. But I think that other piece, the human piece, is just massive. I think in decision making, and it makes or breaks you, to be honest with you. Like you can have, somebody who could be tremendous analytically, but maybe isn't culturally a fit. And that's pretty damaging to your organization if you make the wrong decision with that. So, So I think it's way more than analytics. And I love Eric Spoelstra. I think there's a quote from him. They were talking analytics, just like you were saying. It's just so prevalent everywhere, and you have to say it, even if you're not using it, because then you're not up to speed, and then you get raked over the coals for that. But Eric Spoelstra said he's like, analytics, he goes, we used to just call those statistics.
Right. Yeah.
I just love that. I thought that was awesome.
Well, and, as a baseball writer, sometimes I would get bashed by the modern wave saying, oh, you're not an analytic. Well, I grew up reading Bill James.
Right.
I mean, he invented analytics.
Yep.
And I loved Earl Weaver, who was, the rare manager who would use situational players and platoons. Just calling it a different name and adding a few decimal points now.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Speaking of the personal touch, Lori Ramsey is a friend of ours and runs successfulmarketinggroup.com. Go to successfulmarketinggroup.com/Cheryl Reeve. Sign up for a free action plan and have a free conversation with Lori. It is 2019. It is time to get your business going. It's time to work with somebody who will help you show up on the first page of multiple searches, including Google. If you're a dentist, if you're a medical spa, if you're a plastic surgeon, if you're a heating and cooling company, auto repair company, Lori can help you get found and get business. So check out successfulmarketinggroup.com and go /Cheryl Reeve to get the free audit and action plan. Now, I don't know how much you can talk about other players and their situations, but I'll just throw it out there. Liz Cambage. I always screw it up. It's not a WNBA thing. I screw up names in all sports. Her situation, what can you say about it, or do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think speculation is probably my least favorite thing. But I can just tell you what we've read, which again I don't like because there's not necessarily fact based and all that. I can only tell you what the organization has confirmed, and that is that Cambage has requested a trade from the Dallas Wings, and so. They're in talks with whoever it is that Liz might have on her list. I think there's some speculation about who those teams are, and it's just speculation. So I don't have any other information, besides that. And obviously she's a heck of a player. Big
picture is the most important thing that she plays in the WNBA next year.
Well, I think I think we want all of our great players to be playing the WNBA. That's what makes it so great. But. If she doesn't believe in it, I think it's important that we don't have players in the league that are going to bash the league. And so if you're in it, then be in it. And you have some things to work on, then you work through your Players Association and work on those things. You don't, say, I don't really need to play in the WNBA. I make more money doing this. Well, then go do it. If you don't want to play in the WNBA, don't play in the WNBA. So we don't need that. So if she's in the league and is passionate about what she's doing, she'll be tremendous for the WNBA going forward.
Rebecca Brunson, she showed up at the charity event we did with Lori Ramsey at Dot's Gray Cafe in a few months ago, whenever it was, and Rebecca and Sweet Gypsy. Let me get the name it right. The Sweet Gypsy waffles. I want to make sure I get it right, which were delicious, by the way. Kent Youngblood recently did a piece on her, and I'll just open it to you if you want to mention that.
Yeah, I messaged Kent. I just thought the story was awesome. I knew the story was in the making, kind of thing, and I hadn't heard anything, and then all of a sudden, poof, there it was on the front page of Sports and the back page. So it was a great sort of setting. Pictures were awesome, beautiful pictures of Rebecca and her family, and Graham Mateo was an absolutely gorgeous little boy, and. I think the story was well done. It gives you, such great insight into Rebecca's non-basketball life and what she's doing right now. And I just thought it was a tremendous read. And I know that Rebecca probably enjoyed having that side of her, being able to share that with her fans.
Sometimes I'm such a writer and print person, I forget to look at who shot the photos, which I should be better about that. Jerry Holt, a good friend of mine, has been on the staff forever. We are really lucky. So many newspapers, when they started cutting back, it was the photojournalists who went first. They feel like, we can get AP shots, and photography is so important in our industry. It brings stories to life. It brings people into, as in this situation, brings you right into their living room. And Jerry Holt is one of our best, and it's really cool that he got such good shots. I'm not surprised. I've been working with Jerry often closely for decades now, and he's fantastic. Let's thank Shelley Boyen-Breen here. Again, Shelley being the sports queen. sports books. And it's a book series kind of aimed at ages 4 through 9. It's about a tough little girl who loves to learn new sports.